symposium this week. And as she and I spoke about the topic and about sort of some of the challenges that we have discussed that we have faced over the years, we thought about just gathering a group of female leaders to have a conversation, an open conversation about some of the things that we still today experience. It's been interesting to hear the last two presenters talk about representations of the feminine and how that has happened in music for generations and for hundreds of years, and how those representations still, in many ways, impact the work that we do every day. So I thought we would just have a conversation about some of the challenges that we experience on different continents and how that plays out in our daily lives. So if Anatai will come on up, and if you will come on up, you've been drafted, and you're a student, come on up. So we have a student voice in this conversation who's the first ever female leader of the students, of the student body here at PGVIM. And so I thought it would also be very interesting from an intergenerational perspective to have her voice represented in the group as well. So come on.
We wouldn't have too much of the kind of female appearance on stage. May I nominate Dr. Komsan, the Dean of the Schools of Music, who's a colleague that I know that he's extremely respecting the differences. And I'll be on the side.
So what I would love to do is begin by just maybe introductions of ourselves, where we are leaders, and how long we've been doing leadership work in music and higher education.
Well, sure. Okay, yes, of course. I started as an acting dean here since the inception, so that was 2013. That was a while ago. I was here for 3.5 years, and I went to the States, and then I'm back here as a dean for the second time, for the full dean now. So let's leave it at that first. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Shahanum. I'm from University Technology Mara in Malaysia. Currently, I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor of the College of Creative Arts, under which it is all the arts under one umbrella in our university. Previously, it comprised 3 different faculties. We had the Faculty of Art and Design, Faculty of Music, and Faculty of Film, Theatre, and Animation. So I have been, besides the current position that I'm holding, I've also been the Dean of the Faculty of Music, the Deputy Dean of Academic, the Deputy Dean of Research, and also the Director of Curriculum Affairs of the university. And I'm currently the outgoing President of the Southeast Asia Directors of Music Association as well. Thank you.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow. So as I was introduced, my name is Abra Bush. I'm the current dean of the Jacobs School of Music, the first female dean in the 100 years that the school has been in existence. Before that, I was the assistant dean for academic affairs at the Eastman School of Music, director of the music division at the Boston Conservatory, and the senior associate dean at the Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins University. So I've been doing this work for about 16 years, all in.
Yeah, you've already heard a bit about my biography. But in terms of leadership, I used to run I was the director of an immersion program in the United States, summer program for many years before I moved to the UK. I was the head of department of German at Cardiff University for 5 years until I moved back to music. I've been going back between German language, literature departments and music departments, and I became a dean for the College of Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences. I'm dean for international engagement a year ago. That's been 12 months in the role.
Firstly, thank you for having me here. I'm very glad and honored. My name is Suparang Sutirit, or you can call me Akha. Starting first as a secretary of PGVIM Student Council, and now I'm currently acting like deputy president or something, as we are having election for this year coming up on this Monday. So.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, all of you. I think maybe a great place to start is where you sort of ended things. The pipeline into positions like ours is sort of an interesting one. Your perspective of 80-20 is not quite mine. In the United States, our undergrads are about 50%, 50%. So there's a great deal of balance. But you're absolutely correct. By the time there's the professoriate, it's about 20% women and female identifying and about 80% male identifying. So I'm curious from your perspectives in the places where you are, why that is. Why does it change so much? And where do the women go? Because they don't get to be leaders if they're not there.
Well, the most significant experience in my life was when I was sitting in my supervisor's office, my doctoral supervisor's office, and he said to me, "Now that you've found yourself a good man, are you sure you want to continue with your dissertation?" Thinking, yes, why not? And why are you asking me this? That was a peculiar moment that made me determined to succeed. So it had a very positive, empowering effect. I walked out of there saying, I'm going to show you.
Okay, at our university, actually, where music is concerned, we are not too bad, actually. Yeah, we do have quite a lot of female faculty members. I think perhaps a lot of the males, they tend to do the, freelancing, playing out there, joining the orchestras. So maybe because it's a more secure income when you're working with a university, and so you have that, and for example, our university is a government office, government body, so, you're secure, your pension is secure, etc. So I would probably think that that's one maybe reason. I have not actually done a study, but also because, like for me myself, I decided to go into academics because I was interested in teaching. So that was it was not because of other factors. And I do believe that most of our female faculty members are along that same line as well. And for our students, actually, the university has a problem where we have more female students actually, coming in. And we are also trying to solve that problem. But for our music program, we are not too bad actually. But I'm only speaking for my university because I can't speak for the other universities. Yeah.
For us, on the contrary, I think we have a lot of male students and a lot of male faculty. I just realized that this morning, actually, because I was moderating sessions where I was discussing empowering women in composition. So it just got me to think about this, and I just looked up the student list as faculty list. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that until it was discussed this morning. But having said that, I think for us over here has been pretty harmoniously atmosphere where we try to moderate and make sure that everybody feels safe when they are here. Of course, there are a lot of instances where that might not be the case, but we are trying to be open enough to the students that we are here to help, not to do something else.
So maybe we'll move forward and say from the student perspective. What is it like? What are the differences that you perceive when there are male leaders versus female leaders in the institution, especially from your perspective? Who are you likely to go to one over the other for certain things, or how does that play out for you as a student?
It's quite hard because it's a question for me. I'm not so sure in a way to put it clear. In my own feeling, in my own opinion, I think in my experience I meet a lot more the male leaders also in the faculties and maybe the difference is for me as a woman student, I feel that's the women leaders, women supervisor can feel more connection to me in a personal way. But it doesn't mean that the male leaders are not all around or sensitive. But I think we are more open, gradually.
So I'll ask the other female leaders on this panel, have you noticed a difference between other female leaders and yourself? I had an interesting experience about a year ago. I asked that question because of this. An issue came up that I needed to sort of investigate, right? And it was with a professional orchestra in the United States. And so I picked up the phone and I called the executive director, who happened to be a woman. And she said, "Oh, let me tell you what happened." And she was very direct about it. And I thought, I've had other situations similarly that I've had to pick up the phone and call male leaders, and I have not gotten similar kinds of information from them. And so I wonder, in your experience, do you find that there's a different kind of transparency, or is this just me in my experience?
I think it's difficult to generalize. Depends on the person. I mean, there's this saying, "Women beware women," which has some truth, but also not. I wish we would stay away from generalizing, looking at individual situations. But it's also not easy to answer, because still in this world, most leaders tend to be male, so one doesn't have many experiences with female leaders. Cardiff University is going to have its first female president. She's going to come in the 1st of September. So again, similar to what you've experienced as being the first female leader at your institution, it'll be interesting to see whether this is going to translate into a different working atmosphere. Too soon to tell, but what's your experience in coming in as the first female leader in your institution?
It's sometimes wonderful, and it's sometimes shockingly bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the students have been very welcoming. And the students have been very excited to see somebody who looks like them in front of them. I think the women and the female identifying persons in the building, I mean, again, to generalize, right, have been pretty great and fairly supportive. But I also know that there are things that occur in which I'm looked at differently or I'm scrutinized in a different kind of way than I would be if I were male. Generationally, and again, I'm just, generalizing again, the biggest challenges I've had have been old white men who very specifically have walked in my office and told me things like, "There's no way you'll be good at this job because women can't make a decision and then articulate the outcome." Or "You don't belong here," or "We were just fine with the leadership that we had in place." I always just respond, "Wow, thanks," and I write it down. I write it down on my journal, and I say, "Thanks so much, wow." And I say, "I'm not going to forget that. Thank you for that." So it kind of depends, but I do think there's a certain level of scrutiny that we have as women, right? I mean, we have a female president right now at my university, and I can't tell you the number of conversations I hear about her hair, her clothing, her shoes, the way she carries herself in public, in ways that we never talk about men.
That's probably very true. It's also my experience with student feedback. Sometimes students comment on the way one dresses rather than on the way one teaches, which is peculiar, and I haven't heard any male colleagues being told that in feedback, but I haven't seen all that feedback. But also it was very interesting when I came into the role as dean last summer, and I know the previous dean fairly well because that's my husband. He tells me that I'm being treated very, very different, that things I'm being asked to do are very different. not necessarily good or bad thing, but the perception of what I'm supposed to do in the role is very different from what he was expected to do. And again, that's neutral and can be good and bad, but it's certainly different.
Yeah.
Where is he? Oh, he's there. Yeah. Yes.
I think that it's radically different. It is actually true what she's saying, and without going into detail. But also, I was the founder. Thank you, Comson. It's true what she's saying. She is treated radically different. But also, I was the founding dean in this role 10 years ago, and I've been doing it for a decade. So just in a way, because of I was either lucky or unlucky enough to be the first dean of this type of role in a new structure they brought in the institute. In a way, there was no template for what I did. Therefore, what I did in my role was what this role did, because you just invented it from the ground up, and good and bad things. Mostly good for me because I like just inventing things. I suppose what Monica then came in with as well as having a predecessor was still around, and also being married to the said predecessor, but also expectations had been set up and then there was a changing financial climate that changed. She's caught in the middle in all sorts of ways, but I think speaking as one of these sort of white males, sort of overpaid white males that sort of thing, or whatever, that I can sort of see the issue just statistically speaking in percentage terms, and not just in our university but most British Russell Group universities, for example, the majority of the professorate are male, and the higher paid up you go, the professorial banding. A lot of British institutes are 3 band professors or whatever, band 1, 2, 3, and the numbers of most professors are band 1, and the number of band 2s, band 3s are vanishingly small. But band 3 is sort of godlike tiny category, and this sex statistics are skewed even more the more you go up this banding. And to be honest, we have, certainly at Cardiff University, really tried to study these statistics and work out what to do about it. And there's the usual stuff, but there's the career break issue that a lot of women still do. And I'm not saying this is good or bad, just that it is a fact. A lot of women will either step back from their career or decide that they don't want promotion or whatever. For perfectly good reasons. They put in mid-career at the point when the men are actually making their steps towards more senior roles, and then when they come back in, they're further down the salary scale, and then they're sort of catching up. So there's that one thing, but beyond that, we haven't been able to identify. And it could be that all these structural things, which all in themselves seem insignificant, but then when you add them together, the bottom line is we don't actually know. But I do see that the sort of scrutiny that Monica gets is different from the sort of scrutiny I get, and I'm glad they don't comment on my clothes, for example. It wouldn't come out very well. But
Thank you.
It's interesting when you start asking us these questions. Then only now that I'm thinking about whether in my university it's gender issues or issues of ability, because currently we have our very first female vice chancellor after more than 50 years, 60 years in existence, and also recently we have been having more female deputy vice chancellors also. But we've always never had, from what I see, a problem where female deans are concerned, because actually there are quite a few female deans, and I'm just thinking whether in our situation it's not so much the gender issue, but it's more the issue of the ability of the person to run. So because if somebody is speaking bad about me or questioning my ability, maybe I'm not aware, but I'm sure people are, because that is something that you just can't avoid. But we don't seem to look at it as a gender issue, as I mentioned just now. So it's hard for me to say whether it's really because I'm a female that people are scrutinizing my ability versus a male. Because from what I also gathered, that some of the comments are more in favor for female administrators, because we are more, meticulous and when we are doing our job. So hopefully it's an issue of ability and not a gender issue for us.
Thank you, and thanks for sharing that. I think just to reflect from Akha just said just now, so I think the key here for trust is, for transparency is trust, I think. Because if you want to be able to learn something, if someone trusts you to speak something out, I think that's come with trust, and then that's when transparency comes. And when you don't want to share, well, information is very important, right? And when you don't want to share information with someone, then I think it has just to come with something that some person want to have something else afterward. So I think in a way, when one is being talked about something like, for example, clothing and everything else, I think that person is just maybe being envious, and they might not just trust you yet, or they just want to prove that I'm important, but they are not important enough. So that's they said that to you. Okay, I mean the point is that I think it's about whether female or male or any gender leader. I think it's about how you act and show them who you are. I think, and whether you do what you promise. I think, yeah. I think that's it for me now. Yeah.
That's a great way to frame it. It's about authenticity and about trust building in what we do. I'm curious, how has your work changed, or has it changed, since the Me Too movement came into place 2017, 18, in that area, in terms of the way in which you deal with issues within your schools? Yeah, so the question was, so from my perspective, from where I sit, when the Me Too movement swept across the United States, more female leaders lost their jobs than male leaders. There was an expectation that women knew, and we were omniscient, all-knowing, and that we would be able to respond quickly. And in many cases, that wasn't true. And so more women in the United States, more female leaders lost their work than male leaders did during that time. So I'm curious, has that movement and the issues of sexual harassment, sexual misconduct in your profession impacted your work, or has it changed the way you work in these last few years?
Let me put it this way. When I was in the States as a student, as a doctoral student a few years ago, what I find very interesting is that it's both Me Too and Black Lives Matters and all that movement. It's not that big. But what we found as an Asian the most is that, oh, hi, you're from China. Oh, you're a monkey. There's those kind of things. But and it's not. I think it's not about genders. It's about respecting others and as a person. So I didn't mind. I didn't care, because I know that's the thing, and I just let it go. But from the student point of view at the time, I find that very interesting, because then it's not about Me Too anymore. It's not about Black Lives Matters anymore. It's about race and other things. So to reflect that, so as a leader, I think that's why I said we are pretty lucky here in Thailand, where we are brought up to respect each other. So that's not really a key. I mean, there are still things that I can't say that for everybody. I'm sure different students, different persons do face different experience. I can't say for them, but I guess that is something that I found when I was there as a student.
From my perspective, I'm trying to think. My institution has certainly focused on the issues and is now trying to help underrepresented groups, ethnic minorities, women, get promoted. So there's special training programs, which, again, you single them out. So that's good and bad. It's difficult to find a perfect solution here, but the institution is very aware, and I feel very supported as a female within the institution. That's good. I also don't think in Britain it's different from the US, but I can echo a bit what Konsum is saying here. This Black Lives Matter, for me, needs to be all lives matter, and we need to respect each other. And again, we shouldn't single out one group and forget about others who might feel disadvantaged for a huge variety of reasons. These are not just gender or race. I sometimes feel conscious of, in our senior management team, I'm the only non-native speaker of English. And I usually don't think about it, but there's situations when that can be a disadvantage because the wrong word slips out or something, you know. So
That happens for us too, though.
I know, I know, but yes. I'm just saying. Sometimes, 99% of the time, it doesn't matter. But there's these moments when these things all of a sudden start to matter, and I think everybody has something that can make them feel singled out or uncomfortable in a situation. And these categories don't capture all these individual circumstances. So I understand why these categories are necessary, but I think we need to just generally need to focus on respecting each other and trying to understand each other and giving each other the freedom to develop despite our differences and embrace these.
Sorry, I have not heard of that Me Too issue in Malaysia, but we didn't have any loss of jobs because of gender in the past few years. Yeah.
Malaysia is doing really well.
Yeah, Malaysia seems like the place to be right now. I'm curious what each of you are doing or have done to help support other women or other people of other kinds of minority populations or different racial populations within your institutions or within your work to make sure that we are building a new generation of diverse leadership.
So for us, I would like to hear from the student, actually.
If I may ask, if we could have a questions again. Sorry for my poor English.
Actually, so for you, the question would be, what do you need as a new leader? What kind of support might you need in order to be successful at what you do or be good at what you do? How can we, the generation before you, be helpful to you?
I must say, for our generation, the most important thing is, of course, support equally to the student, whether like they want to speak up, they want to do something for all their friends, all the communities, like that. Maybe some example of what we are doing this here. We want to create like a safe space, safe environment for like learning, and many of the faculties also support us and giving us encouragement on what we are doing, and of course some advice.
Thank you. That's helpful, very helpful, and important for us all to hear, actually.
And I think just for us here, because we are still very small comparing to your schools and your university, so it's still pretty much it's easy. I would say easier, but not easy. Easier just to make that happen. And I'm not sure if we did that, if we have done that, or if we have successful in making it happen. But that's exactly, I think that's what we hope to let them know, that they have their own voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like to support female students, well, all students, but in particular female students, to help them discover their strengths and build upon their strengths and overcome some of what they regard as their limits. I myself was somebody who couldn't speak, found it difficult to speak in public. When I was a student, I'd never opened my mouth. And I got an exchange scholarship, and I went to America, and I became a teaching assistant at Florida State University, and I was 23, and I was standing in front of a class of people who were roughly my age, and I started to sort of see that I could do this, and I now try to encourage my students to try out new things, and if they're not comfortable speaking in public, I say, well, pre-record first, and then we'll look at the video, but work on this, and this is try to create a safe environment where you can explore. Universities should be a time where students explore and find out who they are and who they want to be, reinvent themselves, and build upon their strengths and develop and come out stronger. And I hope, well, that's one of my students there. I hope he will not contradict me afterwards, but it'll be interesting to see what he thinks about my class. I'll have a chat with Miles afterwards.
I have to agree with Monica. Actually, the university that I work for was set up because of a social obligation to the Malays of the country, or what we call the natives of the land. Because when many years ago, when the other immigrants were coming in, they were taking over the economy. So this university was set up actually to help the Malays and the Bumiputras, the natives, to be to get that education necessary to be able to fend for themselves. So because of that, perhaps, we have a high majority of Malay lecturers and staff in our university. And for the undergraduate, actually, it's totally Bumiputras, the natives of the land. We are only allowed to take foreigners in at the postgraduate level. Yeah. So, but having said that, we do, of course, have faculty members from the non-Malay races. Yeah. And what we try to do is to make sure that everybody gets equal opportunities, because the systems and the processes are all in place. It's just a matter of how they take advantage and make use of it for their. But we encourage everyone. I think, at least I try to encourage everyone to do what they need to do for their professional development and career development. Whether we are doing a good job or not, that's a different matter. But there's no, there's no preference on one race over the other. Yeah, for at least for the university. And I'm talking in my context. I'm afraid to make any generalizations, as I said, because I'm afraid that I say it sounds like as if everything is perfect where I am, but then it's actually is only limited perhaps to that context and maybe not to other things. So that's what we are trying to do as well, similar to you. Yeah.
I'll maybe just hop in a second and say, I'm not sure how to even turn it on. Thank you. Sorry. From my perspective, 2/3 of my leadership team are actually women at this point, which is a really interesting dynamic. We outnumber the men at this point, which is great, actually. But we still have a few around for diversity. So in my estimation, one of the things that I really focus on is making sure that when we're hiring, we're all thinking about best practices in unconscious bias work and making sure that we are paying very close attention to the applicant pools and to make sure that there's a great breadth of people and backgrounds and experiences in those pools, and that we don't just, for example, lose all the women out of the pool at each step of the process. So I've actually had our faculty hiring committees go through unconscious bias training over the last year to really dive into what it is exactly we're looking for in applicants and make sure that we're paying attention to those factors as opposed to any other kind of things that might come into play for us. So, for example, where somebody went to school, or where they're from, or who they studied with, or what opera house they sang at, or something along those lines, so that we try to strip that away and really focus on the candidate and the qualities. And it has made a huge difference, actually, in the pool of candidates that we've hired, both on the faculty as well as the administration. We have about 8 minutes or so, and we've been chatting up here and talking about some of our challenges and our opportunities, but I wonder if there's anyone in the audience who has questions for us. In the back.
Yes, I would have a question for the student, because we can see that mainly here, we can see that in the workshops, in the questions, mainly male students are taking the floor, and very seldom female students. So my concern is, did you need to overcome some representation of yourself to accept that position of head of student council? And do you think it can change things in the relationship between students and the senior management team? For this, probably she can answer in Thai and you can translate, or you can have the question, because I would like to have a deep answer.
You mean the students can? Okay. ค่ะตอบภาษาไทยได้นะครับแล้วเดี๋ยวแปล
อาจารย์พอจะช่วยแปลสักนิดหนึ่งนะคะ
So one more time question.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, to become a female leader of the student council
Yes.
in this particular context, it means something. So, did you have to change the way you see yourself to take this position? First part. And second, do you think that you as a female student being at the head of the council could change something in the relationship between students and senior management team within this institution?
I'm just negotiating if I can do the answer first so that she feels safe enough to give her answer. In my case, okay, in my years, 20 years or so ago, when I need to ask questions in class, I have to overcome two things. The first thing, to make sure that the question is clever enough, because being a woman asking a question is very often seen as stupid question. Therefore, that's the first thing I have to overcome. And then the second thing, I have to feel confident enough that it doesn't matter whether people will see me as stupid or not, I'm going to ask the question. So that was my experience, and still is today.
For the first question, I will try to answer in English first. Okay. How that I see myself change when I become part of the student council. As for myself, I didn't think much in terms of like gender. For me to overcome something, to becoming a student representative or something like this, for me is more about my own characteristic, my personal attitude, in terms of I always thinking of myself as an introverted person, and I didn't speak much, but when I get to work with my friends in the student council, we simply are the speakers. We are the person who speak for the whole student here. So overcome this sense of insecure of myself, and I try to be more confident Yeah, but actually, I don't know about how the gender things work in this overcoming process. So maybe I'm not sure that is a good answer or not.
Well, let me add. I mean, seeing her as a fresh student until now, she's an embodiment of actions speak louder than words. So she does act. So
Thank you. And for the second question, as I'm being here for a temporary head of the student council, I think to make a connection to the higher up management, like the faculties or something like that, the main point that we want to do is focusing on how we make them understand us, how we make them have like more communicate that effectively with the students. In Thailand, I think the movement in terms of students speak about their empowering women. We have every like new movements in many Thai universities for like gender equality, such as have the what should I say?อันที่เป็นรณรงค์ให้มีผ้าอนามัยในห้องน้ำของมหาวิทยาลัยอะไรแบบนั้นนะคะ
The campaign to encourage that in university there should be tampons available,
to support the
especially to support the student who might not have access to tampons.
So the PGM Student Council is now still very small compared to the other universities, but we also keep looking for their movements and have them as a role models also. Yeah. And for now, what we are doing, as we mentioned and talk in the before, like we encouraging students to speak up if they have a problems. Also, not only the gender or the sexual harassment problems, and also the other issue too.
thank you.
Thank you.
I know that it's. Oh yes, one more.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
So thank you first for this talk. I only want to add a very small thing. I'm a conductor and a professor for choir conducting in Weimar at the Musikhochschule. So I experienced a lot of things. And not only disadvantages, also advantages of being the first woman to conduct something. So it's such a wide field, and I have so many thoughts listening to you. But I only want to say one thing, and this is maybe supporting you also. The last question was what can we do? And I think what we can do is being there. And just being there and working on what we have learned, not on working being a woman in such a context, but working with our profession and nothing else. And I have a small, very, very small story about this. This is one of my sons. I have my husband is talking here, so this is why we are just guests here. When my other son was 3 years old, my husband asked him, Anton, what do you want to be when you are a man? Would you like to be a conductor like your mother? And he said, oh no, this is something only women can do.
I know we're out of time. I want to thank each of my friends on sitting up here in the hot seats, literally, and also say especially to you, our student voice, thank you. I feel like the future is very bright when we have students like you who are willing to speak up and speak out and ensure that those of us in these positions hear you and hear the students around you. So thank you for all you are doing, and we hope you will continue that great work ahead in the years to come. I'll leave you with this. There are, in the major United States institutions of music, there are fewer women leaders than what we have on this panel right now. In the top 25 to 30 US music schools, there are 2 of us that are leaders of those institutions. It might be different in other parts of the world, but we've all got a lot of work to do and a lot of work ahead of us. So thank you to those of you that are doing the work as female leaders, and thank you to those of you that are allies of us and help us succeed along the way. Thanks.
Thank you very much again, Dean Abra from Jacobs, and also Professor Shahanum, Professor Monica, my dear colleagues, Komsan, and of course, Aka, for being so brave and joining us today. So a lot more to do, a lot more to think about, and I think we can ponder it over many, many lunch and dinners ever. And so the next part, we will have lunch in another building, and after that, please come back to the 3rd floor for a performance by one of our colleagues from Seoul National Universities, and in their performance, Dao in Cage. So we'll see you later. Enjoy your lunch, and feel free to make any movement or statements later on. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.